Hi, I'm Mike Ryan. In part one of our video series on turquoise cutting, we saw how we would select some nuggets that we were going to cut, and we had a chance to look at our setup of our turquoise cutting shop here and some of the different steps that we would go through in this process. And in part two of the video, we're going to show how we would complete those steps. So we're going to show how we would put a cabochon onto a dopping stick, and we're going to cut some turquoise. But first, I want to go through some very important steps on safety. When you are cutting turquoise, the first thing you want to make sure of is that you are protecting your eyes, because you don't want to get stone chips in your eyeballs. So I'm just wearing my glasses here. You could be wearing goggles. We need to protect our ears, so I will be wearing these ear protectors while we're cutting. We need to protect our lungs, and normally I would be using a respirator, but my old respirator bit the dust, pardon the pun, and so now I'm using something that, or today we'll use something we're all familiar with over the last 2 years, and that's a K95 filter mask here. But I would recommend, if you're going to cut turquoise, get yourself a real good respirator. As you can see, I'm wearing this bib. It's a nice quality vinyl bib. And it's seen some mucky work, and it is dirty work. We probably won't go into the cleanup at the end, because that is not the fun part. But you're creating a lot of mud, and you take the dust from the stone and the water, and you get it all together, and it gets pretty mucky. So you want to keep yourself protected that way as well. So with that, let's take a look at some of those nuggets we selected and see how we might go about cutting those. Here are the nuggets that we selected, and they've been soaking overnight in a bucket of water. And so now what we're going to have to do is to decide the best way to cut these. And the first choice is, are we going to use a saw blade on them to cut them, or are we just going to cut them on the wheel? So of course your biggest nuggets are the ones you're going to have to look at the most carefully. Let me get around here so we can see this. Here we have this Godber Burnham nugget. And just as a carpenter will always say, measure twice and cut once, well, when you're cutting turquoise, you want to do the same thing. You really want to study that and see what is the best way to cut that to get the best turquoise out, and also to maximize the carat weight. I mean, with this one, I could just say, I'm just going to make one big, huge nugget out of that. I wouldn't even cut it. I just flatten this one end, flatten this, and then make this giant size cap. That's probably not the most efficient way for making jewelry. So you're going to look and see, how many cabs do I think I can get out of that? What's the best way the nodules are formed here? Here we see a nodule here. Do I want to cut right along this formation here? And that's going to give me a certain form there. Do I just cut simply across the center of it? Cut it in half and see what we have here. So there's a lot of considerations that go into making the decision about how to use your saw when you're cutting this. I think in this instance, I'm just going to cut this in half, because I don't think it's really that high grade of turquoise. So I just want to get a look and see what we've got inside of that. With this piece, this Hubai, we got a little different consideration here, because as I'm looking at this, I'm seeing the possibility of two matching elongated cabs that maybe would be really beautiful in a pair of earrings. So looking at that, and it looks like the quality is pretty much consistent throughout. So I'm just going to try to cut this right down here, so we're going to get 2 halves of that. And as I said, I'm not a professional lapidarist, and certainly don't hold myself up as being an expert at cutting turquoise, but we'll see what we can do with this one. In this one, I think here again, I just want to, this Golden Hills, I just want to get a look at what this looks like. So the question is, do I cut it this way, cut it in half this way, or do I try to cut it in half this way? I think I'm just going to cut this thing in half this way. Now, this one is a smaller piece, thinner piece. This is this Red Mountain. I'm not going to use a saw on this. I'm just going to flatten one side and then dop that and try to make that into one cab. And I think that would be pretty. Now there, of course, the question is, what side do you finish out? This is a little rougher here, so I'm going to flatten this side down, and then this has got this nice red matrix formation there, so I'm kind of hoping that that's going to show us our best matrix there. And I'm going to do the same thing with this rattlesnake. I'll flatten one side, dop that. I think I'll do this side because it's got, looks like there's no turquoise in that matrix formation there. So I'll flatten this side on the wheel and then dop that, and we'll see about making a cab out of that. Okay, so we've done our preparation. We've measured twice, and now I'm going to get the wheel ready, the saw ready, and we'll do some cutting. All right, I'm seated here at the Wizard, Diamond Pacific Wizard cutting saw here. And I hope you're getting a good look here over my shoulder. And we're going to turn this on here. I filled this up with water, so the blade is in the water. Now, one thing you have to remember is once you finish, never ever leave your blade saw in the water, because you're going to come back. It's going to be totally rusted, totally worthless for you. So let me get my headphones on here and my mask, getting my mask on. I hope you can all hear me because I can't hear you. All right, well, I'll need to get my mask on first for my headphones, ear protectors. So I've got my eyes, my lungs, and my ears are all protected. So we're gonna turn this on. All right. We're gonna start here with this laburnum. As I said, we're just gonna cut through that right in half. Okay, now here comes the moment of truth for any cutting. It's that first cut, and you open up. And, you know, it's like we suspected. You've got some kind of soft, mid-grade viburnum here. I'd probably just go ahead and slice these out, continue to slice these out, and then cab these up as best I could, although you know, this is a pretty lower grade for viburnum. So we'll go on to the next one. One of the things when you're doing this work, you want to have a lot of towels around because everything gets wet and dirty. So now we're going to see about this piece of Pubai, Chinese. This is a little trickier cut because we're cutting right through a going to be pretty thin. You get that cut made. But let's see if we can do this. Now, as we're cutting through here, I can feel this is much, much harder stone. I think you'll notice it's getting a lot more resistance in the saw blade as we're coming through here. Okay, let's see what we get here. Oh boy. Oh boy. That's what you want to see. That's when you open up these nuggets and you see that beautiful, beautiful dark web. Then you really got something to work with. So I'm going to cut these up, and they're going to, as you can see here, these are going to come up, and can you already see those as two beautiful earrings? I can. I think it's going to be beautiful. I hope you can hear me through my mask here. So that's a real treat for turquoise cutting. So we got one more to cut here, and that's this piece of stabilized Golden Hill. And as I said, we're just going to cut this thing. Well, you know what? I think I changed my mind here. I think I'll do the same thing with this one as I did with the I almost said Lander Blue. And again, now this is interesting. This is where you could really see the stabilization, because you see that white center in there, and you can see where it hasn't really been cured all that well. So you really get some, like that white. You get striations oftentimes. Really, really difficult to treat turquoise and really have it come out really nice. So, I don't know, again, we'll just do and see how they come out with the matrix on this side after we dot these up. So, all right, well, you've seen how we've cut these, and these are going to have to dry out now before we can dop them. But we can go ahead and start cutting these others, forming these up so that they can go on the dop sticks as well. We'll do that on the wheel. All right, so now I've set up the genie. We're ready to start forming these two pieces here. Forming these. This is the Red Mountain and the Rattlesnake, just so we can get them ready for dopping. How we want to dop them. And once again, I'm looking here and saying, okay, where do I really want to do this? Well, this side has it seems like the least turquoise on it. I think we're going to end up losing this. We'll lose this little part sticking out there. And this is the side we're going to want to then cut for the cab. So I've got these, you can see these little spitters, and this is the way that the Diamond Pacific systems work. They have these little spitters that spit the water up. The other system that's very popular is the Cab King, and that has a recirculating water system. And they're both very good systems. It's just a matter of preference, which one you like. So let's get this thing soaked up and see what we get going here. All right, so you can see the spitters are going up there and spitting that up. So let's get started here. We're going to clean this side off a little bit. So we're going to start with the heaviest grit. And you want to kind of just move this side to side. And then you want to turn it this way because because of the roundness of the wheels, it'll make a, I guess it would be a concave in your we can see how we're getting that flattened out there. And we just move this around in different ways. Now, you always have to hold on to these things, and it gets real difficult because these tabs get kind of tiny. And you can see the advantage of having the dop stick on there because a lot will just try to cut by hand like this. You'll see a lot of cutters, professional cutters, and they won't go through the process of dopping. They'll just cut it right on the wheel like this. One thing I've noticed over the last 5 years, I've gotten a lot shakier. So my cutting is not going to get any easier. So there, we got that finished. I mean, let's face it, we're not going to be, maybe I'll get that a little bit finer. This is going to be the bottom of the tab, so we're not really concerned about finishing this out, getting it polished or anything. That's kind of pretty. Maybe we'll run it on this one a little bit too. Just get the edge off of it a little bit. There we go. So now I think you can see a little bit. We flattened that out, so we'll be able to dot that, and then we'll finish out the top of that. So now we're going to do the same thing with this piece of red mountain. And let's see how this works out here. Yeah, that's coming out real nice. We'll do it on this little lower grit here. Now that's always the big choice, isn't it? Look how beautiful that's coming out. Man, that is some beautiful looking red mountain. You can see the characteristic reddish matrix in there, that deep blue, really pretty stuff. We'll just do it here a little bit. Alright, that's a pretty nice looking turquoise. Get our light on here. Well, maybe I won't have my light on here. Light's not working. I hope you can see how pretty that is just with the natural light there. Alright, so I'm going to shut this off. So now we've taken a look at how we're going to prepare these for dopping. Our next step is to actually let these dop. And I got one that is all ready to go. These are going to have to dry off. We want these to dry before we start to dop these.